Welcome and thank you for joining Impacting Leaders e-training for today's course, Creating a Motivating Environment. Your instructor for this course is Linda Sasser, CEO of Impacting Leaders. Linda knows that when you create a motivating environment for your team, you get their best. And when you get their best, the entire company benefits with high morale, momentum, growth, and a fun environment to work in. So let's get started on how you can create a motivating environment for your team.
Hi everybody, this is Linda Sasser, and today we're going to talk about motivating. In particular, how do we motivate others as a leader? We'll look at 5 key components: connect and engage with your team, create fulfillment, recognize successes, be a proactive leader, and then teach for performance. So let's get started. Connect and engage with your team. There's 2 ways of looking at how to motivate those that we lead. It's best if we can capture their hearts, because if we can get the attention of their heart and their mind, then we get all of the person, more so than just thinking about only being interested in their hands or their backs. To get performance or production out of people, we really want them to do more than just show up to work every day, don't we? And if that's the case, then we've got to figure out how to capture their hearts and minds. So it's a battle, or maybe it's a competition between finding out, how do I get more than just their hands and backs? Because when I get that, I know I'm going to get an 8-to-5 worker who will do their job and maybe or maybe not hit production, but they'll show up. Or maybe they won't even show up, but every other day. We want their hearts and we want their minds so that they help us think through. They help us get better. They find better ways to perform, meaning they're going to be an engaged worker for you. So let's look at the 2 different ways that we can lead and motivate others. Let's say we're just after their hands and backs. Let me tell you what happens in this type of environment. First of all, as a leader, we're consistently complaining, or maybe we're being sarcastic to the person about how they could probably perform better. We change focus many times and we're not consistent with our goals, trying to get them to reach further or do more. Lacking empathy. That's a big one, because many times we've got our own problems and we're just here to hit production numbers. And sometimes we forget that we're dealing with people. And it's those people who help us hit our production numbers. So understanding the person and having more empathy towards how they can do their job better. Taking all the credit for the wins. When you do a great job with your team and your team hits the numbers, it's not about us, is it? It's about the team. And to take credit for great work done by our team is one of the fastest ways to lose a heart of a person that works for us. Blaming your teammate for the losses. Here's the deal as a leader. When you're winning, it's because of the team. When you're losing, it's because of us. That's the responsibility we have as leaders, to give it away when it's appropriate and then to take on that burden when we should. Taking privileges, meaning, hey, I'm the supervisor, I'm the boss, I get to do this. Talking the talk. Really, what is our talk? And can people figure out our philosophy and our values and what we believe in and the culture we want to create in our area by our talk or by our walk? Hopefully, we're not having to tell people so much about what we want, but they can see it in how we live and how we walk. Keeping the fruits of your success to yourself. Now, that means anything from compliments that you get from your leaders to maybe perks that you get and don't share. A good example of that is something that I was blessed at receiving this week. I had 2 compliments on 2 different projects that we had pulled off from an individual that I value very much. And he emailed me saying, great job on such and such a project. And I replied back, of course, with a big thank you. And I copied 2 teammates who really were the ones that should be congratulated in pulling it off. And I told them, thank you. Here are the 2 teammates that really made this happen. And it didn't take very long. That's all I really said, maybe a few more words. But the point was, it was done so in a way that they would have never known that I could have taken credit for that job. I could have said, thank you so much. Yeah, I worked hard on that. Glad it worked out for you. But instead, thanked them and gave the spotlight to 2 other people and let those 2 other people see what a great job they had done. And that person replied back again, replied to all, and reinforced again what a great job they had done. So while that was a compliment, I could have easily kept that fruit to myself and relished in it. But it was fun to be able to share that success with others. Hoarding information. Information is valuable. Information kept to ourselves, I'm not sure why it's so valuable. Yet many times we think if we have all the information, we have all the power. Or I've got this information, but this is just for me as the leader to have. I don't really need to give this out to anyone else. Oh, how wrong that is. Many times information is valuable to those that are doing the work. So spread information that you're able to spread anytime, just so people feel like they're in the know. You know that being in the know is a huge motivator for people. They just want to feel a part. And when you share information with them, they feel more a part of what's going on in the company. Talking down to them when mistakes are made. Gosh, this is a biggie. I know we get frustrated when mistakes are made. But, mistakes are learning opportunities for us. And when we talk down to people as if they were below us, then it makes them feel inadequate. In fact, it certainly doesn't build their confidence. And when a person doesn't feel good about themselves and their self-esteem is low, especially if you're the one making it low, you won't get their best. You certainly won't get their hearts and their minds. You might get their back and their hands today, but they might not even come back tomorrow. Remember, people join companies, but they leave supervisors. They come to work for the company because of what they've heard about it, or perhaps it's a really neat company in the community and they want to be a part of it. But when people leave and they don't come back on their own right, it's because of us as their supervisor. They left us. We're the person there every day that's supposed to be igniting their performance and welcoming them and showing empathy. We need to make sure that we're doing the things that capture their hearts, because it's their heart that's going to want to come back the next day. They're not coming back because they love hard work. They're coming back because they see the value of their work, because their supervisor showed them the value. Now let's look at what are the things that we can do to capture the hearts and minds of those that work for us. Well, creating an excitement in the work that they do is really important. Even the most mundane work. If you can connect it to why that part of the work is so important, then they get to see a bigger picture, not just that small piece of the project that they're doing. So keep that vision relevant and keep it out there in front of them all the time. Showing that you care, not just saying that you do. Now, how do you do that? Well, you certainly can show that you care. But when you spend no time, or you walk by without saying hello, or you never smile, you never say, great job on that project, then you're probably not showing that you truly care. Giving up credit for the wins. We talked earlier that when you take credit for all the wins, it's so demeaning. To see a leader give up credit and to cast that spotlight onto the team is a wonderful environment to be in. And taking responsibility for the losses. Serving and sacrificing, especially when it's inconvenient. That's a big one. When you serve your teammates and when you sacrifice for them, and when you do it in a way that, in fact, it causes an inconvenience for you, that tells them that you truly do care about them. It also tells them that you're in as part of a team. You're not just the leader of the team. Walking the talk. We talked about earlier, talking the talk versus walking the walk. And that's so easy to say also. But boy, when we have to put our feet down and start walking, Sometimes we have to realize how magnificent it is when we actually live out something that we've said. Sharing our successes with others. Even if it's not really a success perhaps for you or your team, but the company has seen some type of success, sharing that success with them and including them in that celebration is very important. Communicating openly and honestly, and using mistakes as teaching opportunities. That's one of my favorite things. When someone makes a mistake and they know they've made a mistake, and you take that mistake and you look at it as something that's not going to be replicated, and it's forgiven, and then you learn from it. And you say, let's look at this. You know what? That was a mistake. In fact, I think I've made that mistake before. Here's what I learned from it. And here's how I kept myself from doing it again. And what a great feeling for you as a leader to know that, whew, good. That person's learned that. I hated that they had to go through it. It hurt me, hurt them, kind of hurt the team. But now they know. And once that mistake is made and learned from, that person automatically becomes more of a valuable player for you and your team because they've learned. Much better than that person getting mad, you getting mad, they leave the organization. In comes another employee and sits right down in that seat with the exact same potential to make the exact same mistake because they haven't learned from it either. And neither did the person that just walked out the door. Yet they could have. So use mistakes as an opportunity to better the employee. Creating fulfillment. Creating fulfillment is both for you and for your teammates. If you put your teammates first, kind of like we've already talked about, I think the result is going to be fulfillment for you. So let's look at how we can help our people be more fulfilled. Know what fulfillment looks like for them. What motivates them? Do they like to help others? Would they prefer to have more of a flexible work schedule? Do they want more money for what they do? In fact, think of the most fulfilling job that you've ever had and why you left it. That's probably the same reason you'll leave the one you're in. And the same with your teammates. So let's understand what they want. Now, they may say, well, yeah, I'd be more motivated if I got more pay. Well, believe it or not, pay is not the most important thing to people. There are other things. And it takes time and it takes an awareness to understand what those are. If nothing else, ask the person to list what motivates them and talk to them. Many times their first answer might not be the most accurate one. So talk to them, get to know them, and you'll be able to figure out what motivates them. Count the wins, no matter how small, especially for new employees coming into your department, just now learning a new job. Count those small wins early on and often. And then the better a person gets, the more mature that they get, the more experience they get, then you don't have to necessarily count every single win. Perhaps you count every other one. But being motivated because your supervisor noticed that you were doing a good job. Have a positive attitude. This goes for all of us, whether we're leading or whether we're simply working on the line. Our frame of mind truly does impact how we feel about what we do, and it impacts the other people around us. Negative attitudes and positive attitudes are catchy. People will catch on. Be open to trying new things. People are fulfilled when they have an opportunity in a very safe environment to try new things. Perhaps to learn a new part of a different job, to learn a new skill. It's exciting because the more skill sets they have or that they can learn inside of your division, the more valuable they become to you. And the more valuable they become to you and to the company is very fulfilling. What we want to do is create an environment of fulfillment. And leaders, beware. If you're not fulfilled in your own current role, it's very difficult for you to care about the fulfillment of others. So become self-aware of yourself and understand that your fulfillment factor is in helping others get better at their job And you'll find that that will be a very fulfilling role if you're truly lined up and set up to be a leader. Recognition. I think recognition is something everybody wants. I don't care how high up the food chain you get. I think there's a little bit of recognition need in all of us. Now, it could be unhealthy either way. Some of us need too much. Oh, good Lord, if we don't get recognized every second, we feel bad, we feel depressed, we're doom and gloom, we're not doing very well. That's high maintenance. You don't want to be a person, nor is it fun to lead a person who needs so much recognition that it becomes high maintenance. However, don't ever underestimate that someone is so confident and so good at what they do that they never need to be recognized. I've seen some of the most confident leaders over time become less and less satisfied with their work because they never were recognized. The people around them never dreamed that they needed to be recognized because they were so confident in what they did. But everybody needs a certain amount of recognition. So don't overestimate that. Now, I think there's 3 buckets for recognizing people. It needs to be individualized. It should connect to their motivators. And if it can be a surprise element, that's always the best because it surprises a person. So let's look at individualized. Not only individualize as the person, but individualize what you're recognizing. Meaning, instead of saying, wow, you did a good job today, tell me why I did a good job. Wow, Linda, you did a great job today. Let me tell you why. Or, I love the quality of your work. Let me explain what you did today that was so valuable. So get detailed on your compliment. Doesn't mean you have to take a long time. Just look at what it is you really, really liked so that they fully understand what you're recognizing them for. And in doing that, that particular item will become repeated every time because they love the recognition. Connecting to their motivators. People are motivated, and hopefully we found out what they're motivated about. Once you find out their values and what motivates them, it's so much easier to recognize them or to connect it to their motivator. For example, let's say a person is motivated by their family time that they get to spend. One of the best things you could do for a person who has good family values is to send an email or write a note to their family telling them how awesome their mom is and what a hard worker she is, and that you thank them for letting her come to work for you every day. Wow. That is recognition. And when your family is proud of you, if you have family values, it's probably one of the best things you can do to recognize others. And then the surprise element. This is fun. It's fun because it's so unexpected. If you have a bonus system in place and perhaps you pay or you bring donuts if people hit their production goals, that's good. And that is recognition. I'm not downplaying that. But when something happens that surprises another person, that makes the recognition even more memorable. And surprises don't have to cost money. Just calling a person. In fact, what would happen if you did this? Let's say Harry's doing a great job on the line. You stop the line and say, hold on just a second, Harry, come here. Harry, along with everybody else, probably thinks he's in trouble. And then you stand there and you say, let me tell you something that you did that I want to make sure you replicate. And I'm so honored that you did that. It helped this entire team and it helped this company. Thank you so much for doing that. Wow. Now you can do that privately or you could do that publicly. That's up to you. Send them back to the line. Hopefully you didn't have to shut it down, but even if you did, that took 30 seconds? Maybe. Recognition is something that we so overlook because we fear it takes up too much time. Now you can recognize people in bigger ways, giving big awards, spending money perhaps, giving bonuses or raises or plaques or trophies. But I think the recognition we all want is just to hear that we have been doing a good job and it's noticed. Somebody noticed it. Now, I like to give public recognition, but I also like to give private recognition, depending upon the situation. Public, if I need everybody around to know what I like and what I want replicated. Not only does the person receive recognition in front of their peers, which is a big deal, but you're also telling everybody in the room what you liked and why you liked it. So now they're also going to try to achieve that. I like private recognition when I really want the person to understand how important and how sincere it is. And I'll pull them in my office and sit down and say, I need to tell you something. I know I told you this already. And I know I told you out there in the public, but I really need you to understand what you did was very special. And not everybody can do that. And I want you to recognize and understand that is a special talent that I want us all to respect. Thank you again. Sometimes that is more meaningful to the heart than many things. And now you're connecting with that person as an individual, which gets them engaged. And now you're capturing their hearts, not just their hands. Being a proactive leader. You know, we all live in a very reactive world. Our companies are reacting to the economies. We're reacting to our customer demands and what they're ordering. And we tend to always have to react to situations or problems that may arise. But you know, a proactive leader is someone who's getting ready for that and understanding that we're always going to be reactive. So the more proactive I can at least start preparing me and my team, it will allow us to be ready for the reactive moments. A proactive leader understands that they've got to be intentional and they have to plan. How are they going to develop their people? And in developing people, it might mean cross-training them. It might be spending some time one-on-one and making sure that they understand the whys behind the job that they do and teaching them the next best way to do it. Learning seems to happen all the time, not just sometimes. By doing this, the proactive leader creates a culture where the momentum starts to increase because more people not only know how to do the job, but more people are capable of maybe getting close to doing your job, which is our ultimate goal. To be so good at developing others that someone ultimately can take our place. And then hopefully you're developing yourself so that you can take another leader's place. That's how companies grow, is by expanding the knowledge and capabilities of all the people that work for them. Now, unfortunately, because we live in such a reactive environment, we tend to be reactive leaders, and that's what we want to try to get out of the habit of. We react to goals not being hit. We react to the economy going sour, or we react to, oh no, we lost a client, what should we do? Or we gained a client, and now we have orders coming in so fast we don't know how to be able to put out that type of production. Producers can't be replicated because we don't have any leaders that are helping them replicate. And reactive leaders, gosh, you know, reactive leaders spend a lot of time telling all day long, telling people what to do, making every decision. And that gets tiring. Being a reactive leader over time will wear you out because you're the only one that's capable of doing things. And if you're the only one that's capable of doing things, then you've not succeeded as being a leader. That's your fault if you're the only one that can do many of the things that you're after. So instead of telling people all the time what to do, teach them. Help them understand why, so that next time they can teach another. And before long, you've got a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge about the work in your area, in your department, and they're teaching one another, leaving you to be proactive to make sure you can continue developing your team and your teammates. Now, there's actually a teaching or development or coaching flowchart that I'd like to share with you. It's going to be very simple and very basic, but it'll help us be proactive. When you're teaching and when you're helping your people develop, first of all, you've got to tell them what to do. The first time, you do have to tell them what to do. And make sure in that process that they understand why and how. Those are the two things you stay focused on when you're initially teaching someone something. You're going to tell them what to do, but you're going to tell them why you do it and then how you do it. After you tell them, then show them what to do. You sit down and do the exact job that they're supposed to be doing. Make a couple of calls or put a few assembly pieces together. Whatever the role it is that they're going to do, sit down and show them. Now, if you're not capable of showing them for one reason or another, pull in someone who can mentor them and let them watch. Because the point here is you're showing how to do it. So you've told, now you're going to show. The third step is to watch them do it. Let them sit down and do it with you right there so that you can help give them guidance. They're not all by themselves yet. After that, then ask them what they're going to do next. Okay, now you understand the job. Gosh, you've seen me do it. You've actually done very well while I watched you. Now I'd like for you to do this on your own. So when you're going to do it on your own, tell me what you do next in this situation. And let them reverbalize to you what their role is and what they need to do. Listen to their answers. You might want to ask some probing questions just to see if they really have full knowledge of how to do it. This may bring up more questions from them. That's good. Now we're gaining good understanding. If, as you listen to them and as you watch them, if you're acceptable with it, then move on and just monitor for results. Check in with them. Make sure they're doing okay. Don't leave them alone all day, especially their first day at doing a new job, or perhaps it's the first day of a new employee. Go check in with them and see if they're doing all right. Now, as you listen, as you watch, if it's not acceptable, then you want to go right back up and start over again. Tell them what to do, why and how. Show them again, and then watch them do it. And then go through that process again. As you monitor their results, that's going to tell you how much follow-up coaching they need and how much training that they need. If they're successful, reinforce and recognize, like we've talked about, so that they can continue doing exactly what you'd like for them to do. Now, if they're not successful, you've got to go right back up. Tell them what to do, why and how. Show them, watch them, and then let them ask questions, and then you ask them questions. Now, I know what you're thinking. How many times do I go back up to that tell, show, and watch? Well, I guess that really depends on the nature of the job and what they're doing and the difficulty in learning it. Take your time. The more difficult the job, the more time that you're going to need. The easier the job, the less time. But beware, because sometimes the easier the job, the less time we spend helping someone do it well. We think this is easy. Do it. Well, sure, it's easy to you. You've been doing it. But for a first-time person, it's not easy. So take the time up front to go through this flow, and you'll find that people will catch on, and soon they'll be developing into another skill where they go right back through this again. Okay, let's talk about 3 critical leader actions that you can do to protect your motivated team. Now you've done such a great job motivating people. Let's make sure that we keep and protect that culture that you've built in your department. 1, be a buffer for your team. Now, this comes into protecting your team a little bit, and it also comes into protecting your leader. One of the things that I hear so often is a supervisor saying, well, we need to switch and do it this way and this way because so-and-so up the food chain said we have to. That's not filtering nor buffering in any way, shape, or form. You see, you want your team to be excited and motivated, so you've got to buy into it, right? So your job is not only to buffer your boss's decisions if you disagree with them or if you're not aligned with them. That doesn't matter. It's not your job to share that. It's your job to buffer that. You can lead up and you can debate. You can do what you want on that level. But the minute a decision has been made, you have to buffer your feelings and make sure you move on to make sure it's pulled off with your people. So in that process, because if your teammate senses that you're not happy, they're not going to be happy. And there goes the motivating environment you just created. So when something changes or something happens that could derail some of the motivation, you're there as the buffer. That's your job That's why you're in place. That's what supervisors do. That's part of your job. In fact, sometimes it's a big part of our job. So understand that role is to protect that motivated culture that you've created and buffer when it needs to be buffered. 2, understand what motivates your team. If I'm working for you, I'd love for you to understand what motivates me. Many times you think it's money, but it's not. Many times you think that whatever motivates you also motivates me. But that's not true either. You don't know what motivates me unless you either sit down and ask me, and let's have a quality conversation about it, or watch me. Watch how I make decisions. Watch what I do in my spare time. Ask me what my hobbies are or what I like to do when I'm not at work. Have a conversation, because I'll tell you. So many times we just fail to ask. But understanding what motivates and understanding the values of our people is huge. And write them down so that you won't forget. Those of you who supervise a lot of people, take notes when you're having conversations with people. Have a notebook or a file on each person so you remember their motivators. And look at that regularly so you won't forget. And number 3, recognize champions that sustain the team spirit and the culture you want. There are going to be some people that work for you who just get it for some reason. Maybe you connect with them better. Who knows? And those people are good influencers for the rest of your team. They take that spirit and they get excited. I was in an office the other day. It was an office environment. There were about 6 people. And I thought, gosh, this is kind of drab because it was real quiet and it was kind of, nobody was really smiling. And then they had a stand-up meeting where everybody came to the middle and they stood up and they kind of went over some different things that they were going to do for the day. And there was one person in those 6 that smiled, and her conversation was a little bit more full of pep. And I thought, that one is the spirited one. And later I talked to the leader of the group. I said, get a hold of that one, because that person can help you inspire and motivate the rest. They've got that positive spirit about them. When you find people like that on your team, grab them and use them to help you motivate the rest of the team.